Good afternoon, my name is Dalton Tierney, and I'm going to briefly discuss with you over the topic of virtualization. We're going to talk about why it's important, what it is, where it came from, and how it relates to cloud computing. Most people think virtualization is cloud computing, but cloud computing is not virtualization. Virtualization is a part of cloud computing. So I'm going to expand on that. The beginning of virtualization. Well, virtualization was a concept that came about to a few people in the late 1960s. They all worked for IBM, and they were trying to virtualize operating systems for the very first time. A man by the name of Jim Rymarcizic played a huge role in that. He's been working for IBM actually for the last 40 years and is still a big player in helping them with the advancement of the technology of virtualization. Now, what is virtualization? Well, basically, virtualization, it's just what allows you to separate the operating system from the physical server, allowing you to run virtual machines. So you are able to distribute the resources from the hardware of the physical host and give it to these virtual machines, and this increases efficiency. You can also save on cost by having less pieces of hardware. But what allows this virtualization to occur is a piece of software called the hypervisor. And before these hypervisors existed, the operating systems were just loaded directly onto the physical server. So this caused many issues because when they were moving hard drives from one server over to another that had a different operating system, it would cause all these issues. So with the hypervisor, they are able to basically move hard drives from one server to another, even if a different operating system, and still be able to use the data. So we'll get into more of that with the hypervisors. Now, hypervisors, so the job of the hypervisor is to allocate the resources from the physical server and allocate them to their virtual environments. And you see I have a diagram here. These are the two different types of hypervisors that you'll see used. The type 1 is the bare metal. This is your basic. You install the hypervisor directly on top of the physical server, and there is not already an existing operating system. It's a very easy process. All you do is load the disk onto the server and upload the software, and boom, you got the hypervisor. Now, you're not able to edit too much from the physical server. You have to have a separate computer with a management software on it to run the hypervisor, and this is where money comes into play, because the hypervisor software itself isn't really what costs the money. It's the management software for the hypervisor and for the whatever you're running, whether it be VMware SXE or Microsoft Hyper-V or Apple Boot Camp. Those are just different versions of Type 1 hypervisors. Type 1 is the most frequently used because they are the most secure and have the lowest latency, at least in commercial and business settings. Now, Type 2 hypervisors, these are also called hosted hypervisors, and these are installed directly onto the operating system of the server or the host or whatever it is, such as like Mac OS X or Windows or Linux. The reason you might want a Type 2 hypervisor would be you don't need that management software to mess around with the instances of the operating system. So some versions of this would be VMware Workstation or Oracle VirtualBox. Like I said, these are usually free. Where these are normally used at is in small working environments. They're not as secure. But once you have the hypervisor installed, you can run virtual machines on the hypervisor to manage the resources that have been allocated to those environments. So the VMs are completely independent, and they are able to run different forms of operating systems at once. So you can run Linux, Windows, OS, Unix, whatever. Now that we've discussed the core process of virtualization, some of the key fundamentals, we can talk about some of the benefits. If you can run several virtual machines from one physical piece of hardware, then you're basically able to consolidate your networking infrastructure. And this can save you tons of money because servers and all the software and hardware cost a ton of money. Thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So you are able to basically consolidate all of that into one physical environment. It is also much faster setting up a virtual machine compared to setting up an entire physical environment. So speed, cost-wise, if one of your physical servers are down, then you're able to reallocate the VMs to a different working hypervisor on a different machine within the same network, as long as it's on the same hypervisor, or it is the same type of hypervisor. And then you can also back up software that utilizes virtual hard drives, and that's a big thing now, and companies like Microsoft offer that, and another company that offers that type of service is Acronis. Well, thank you so much for coming to my TED Talk. I hope you are a little well versed with just some of the key, basic fundamentals of virtualization, what's needed in order to start virtualizing VMs, or if you were looking to, start an at-home thing, what kind of hypervisor you might look into getting if you already own a server. But thank you, and appreciate it.